Thank you for joining us wherever you are. This podcast episode is brought to you by the Old Ways Actual Play team. This actual play uses the 7th edition Call of Cthulhu tabletop role-playing game rules by Chaosium. This actual play is performed by adults and in an adult setting. While we try very hard to stick to language for all ages, listeners should know that this podcast may include mature themes. All content, including names, places, events, companies, and etc., that may bear resemblance to entities living or dead, is strictly coincidental. My name is Michael Diamond, and for tonight's game, I will be your keeper. Thank you for joining us again on another episode of the Old Ways podcast. I'm your keeper Michael, and we return to Horror on the Orient Express, where we've recently just killed the professor. More on that later. At the top of the show, I'd like to thank you, the listener, and especially you, the Patreon supporter. We thank you very much for all of your support of the show. If you'd like to join in and potentially have a hand in saving and or killing another... No, I'm kidding. We wouldn't let you kill anybody, but we might let you have some fun with them, toy with them like a cat toy. If you'd like to do that, you can at patreon.com/theoldwayspodcast, and we look forward to seeing you there. Now, we will get to introductions before we get back to a very dirty platform the professor is currently laying on. So, to my right.
Hi there, this is Mike, and I play James Robert Fraser, who is just hanging up a pair of pressed trousers in his wardrobe in his compartment on the Orient Express when he hears what sounds a little suspiciously like the crack of a pistol outside.
Not once, but twice. And to Mr. Fraser's right.
Hi, this is Rena. I play Lady Elizabeth Fitzroy, and I'm sure everything is fine.
Certainly. Sure, there's nothing amiss at all. At the end of the table.
Hi, this is Giles, and I'm playing Simon Griffith, and he's sure he didn't hear anything, rolls over, and goes back to sleep.
We'll see about that. To Mr. Griffith's right.
Hi, this is Miranda, and I play Maggie Bellinger. When will this damn train get underway?
There's something underneath the train it seems they've got to clear. Last but most certainly not least.
I'm Martin, and I'm playing Richard Courtenay. And, shot in the back, I guess. He's lost a shirt, maybe a jacket. I mean, it could have been worse. Shot in the arse, he would have been down another pair of trousers.
That's true, and you've just gotten a new outfit. So as we raise the curtain, I would like Martin to roll me 1d6 and add 1 to that amount.
All right, let me find... I'm not sure I have a lucky d6, but let's see if I can find one. Oh, the clear dice rolled a 4.
Fantastic. You may add 5 hit points to your character. You are still unconscious, though.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, well, don't thank me yet. So, after a couple of pistol cracks, which you clearly pick out, Mr. Fraser, you begin to suddenly hear strange buildup of noise in the hallways here, and you hear a woman scream, and then another one.
I think given the general feeling of suspicion and paranoia, which is probably accompanying all of us at the moment, Fraser is going to go out into the corridor and look out through the nearest train door or train window to see if he can see what is occurring.
Well, what you see is somewhat dependent upon your spot hidden roll.
Right, well, let's see. That is a normal success, 61 under 86.
There's a porter who's kneeling down near a form on the platform. The big thing to keep in mind in this scene is that the platform doesn't have complete daylight by any means. There's enough ambient light here and lights nearby where the Orient Express is taking off that you can easily get a vision of what they're looking at, but no true complete definition. There is a body on the ground, and they are seeming to inspect and to try to examine that body. And with your spot hidden, you can tell from this distance that is a very familiar looking jacket.
Oh no. And I think I will go probably to Simon's cabin and knock on the door in something somewhat urgent fashion. Simon!
Just 5 more minutes.
Simon, wake up. Something's happened to the professor. I think he's been shot. Pull your trousers on and come with me.
All right, I'm coming. Simon pulls on his trousers and his suspenders.
All right, you yank your britches on, as you might say, and head out, shirt, and enough to cover you to get out the door.
I'm not waiting for him to come out the door. I'm heading down onto the platform as soon as I've heard that he's getting up. Excuse me. Push my way through.
You push your way and through and out of the doors to go back onto the platform. And you can see the porter is trying to, through now a growing pool of blood, trying to ascertain. He's looked up and looked back to the train, and you can see him beginning to call for a doctor or help.
Yeah, and actually, in fact, just kind of retroactively, I think, bearing in mind we've got Paul with us, I think Fraser would have actually banged on Paul's door as well before he went out.
Yeah, I could see you doing that, knowing that he was lying in a heap.
Just shout, Paul, something's happened to the professor.
What?
This guy, I think he's been shot.
Oh, God. You hear Paul begin to scramble around inside of his room. You hit the platform, Fraser, sort of you make a path to get to Professor Courtenay, and he's definitely been shot.
So I'll push my way through. Make way. I think I know the man. I think I know.
They let you through.
And I'll feel for a pulse. See if I can tell if he's alive or not.
First aid, please.
Okie dokie. First aid is not Mr. Fraser's speciality, but he has a little understanding of bodily functions. Oh, and that's a hard success. 16 under 50.
Fantastic. Simon, you arrive on scene as Mr. Fraser is looking him over. You know two things are true right now. His life hangs in the balance. That is one. And the other is he has to get medical attention immediately because he's going to bleed out.
More medical attention than I would be able to perform with the first aid. Yes,
without necessary tools, really all you're trying to do basically is staunch the bleeding and put pressure on the gunshot wounds. So your hands are now covered with the professor's blood. Simon, you arrive, and then soon after that, Paul with his bag.
Paul, quickly!
Simon would have been helping Fraser, trying to at least stabilize the professor while we were waiting for Paul.
Yeah, the two of you help staunch those wounds. He's been shot twice, once in the front and once in the back. It looks like he's lying in basically a pool of his own blood when you arrive. Paul steps in beside you and very sort of orderly takes and opens up that leather case and begins pulling out, items, gauze, obviously certain things to help staunch the bleeding itself. And he says, okay, back up. Give me room for a minute. I need a basin of water. Someone go and get me some water.
I'll go right away. Simon, see if you can see who did this, where they are. And I will run and try and find someone. Presumably the train is going to be the easiest place to find someone. I'll try and find one of the porters on the train and say, water, quick.
Paul, do you need me here?
No, go. I'm fine. They supply you very quickly with a basin of water and towels. You hear Paul say something to one of the porters in French. It's very quick.
Can I make out what I have a little French? Can I make out what it is you say?
Oh, yeah. Go ahead and roll French.
Simon will try and do the same.
Nah, not a clue.
Oh, no. In fact, I fumbled that one.
Yeah, so neither one of you are terribly sure. And Simon, you're not terribly sure it was French either. It could have been something else.
So I think once I've got someone to take hot water down, I know that Paul's looking to him. I am going to go and see if I can rouse her ladyship, because I think this is important enough to be woken up for.
So this is probably true for most of you, actually. You probably hadn't had the time to actually get to sleep yet. You slept most of the day. And so that's going to be sort of the trouble here is, like, you might be relaxing in your compartment, Lady Elizabeth, but you probably haven't had a chance to actually fall asleep yet. You're probably waiting for the train to get going.
Yes, definitely. I wasn't planning on sleeping anyway. I was looking through my books. Haven't had time to read, really, recently. And I'm about to get interrupted again.
Indeed.
I wonder if maybe you might have even heard the commotion even before I get to the door. Probably the same for Maggie.
Probably, yeah. Well, Maggie's in a different state. She's in pain, enjoyably in pain, I suppose. But she's also concentrated on, unlikely, on something else.
So the first door I'll knock on is her ladyship's.
Yes, who is it?
It's Fraser, your ladyship. I think you should come. Something's happened. It's the professor. He's been shot.
Oh, good Lord. Not again.
It's not looking good, Your Ladyship. Paul's attending to him right now. I'm just going to go and wake Miss Bellinger or see if... I'm sorry, if you'll excuse me, I'm going to...
Go, Mr. Fraser. I can take care of myself, thank you.
And I will go and knock on Maggie's door.
Okay. Maggie, there's a knock on your door.
Yes, what is it?
Miss Bellinger, it's Mr. Fraser. I think you should come quickly. Something's happened to the professor. He's been shot. He's on the platform now. He's in a bad way.
Oh, I'll be right there. Maggie jumps up and throws open the door.
Okay. You head out back to the platform. Simon, were you going to try to do a little bit of tracking to see where someone had gone?
Yes, I would love to.
Let's handle that before we get to the professor scene officially.
26 under 30.
Okay. So you track this assailant, you believe, down the north side of the platform through some of the dirt and rock here that exists as the train grade sort of changes. You get to eventually a point where it interdicts the road itself, so it kind of curves back towards the city streets, and that's about when you lose them, because you effectively join a common street. You don't see anybody out here. It's also the middle of the night. They could have gone back into town. They could be taking that road deeper into the countryside. So you'd have some choices there you'd have to make before you could really sort of get to the next portion.
Could I make a listen roll to see if I can hear people? Which direction?
Certainly, go right ahead.
And that's a fail. 64 over 45.
Yeah, it's dead quiet. Other than the train sort of sitting in the station a little bit behind you, there are maybe some creatures lurking around at night. Birds, probably. Maybe small animals, mice, etc. But you don't hear any hard clapping footsteps or footfalls running away. Nothing like that.
Okay, one last question then to wrap it up. With the tracking, was I able to see any shoe prints or anything like that? Something that could tell me if it was a men's shoe or anything like that?
Yeah, you were able to see that there is definitely a footprint here in the mud that's made exceedingly recently, and it's definitely a man's shoe size.
Okay, thank you.
So back at the platform, the first of what looks like 2 police officers are arriving from just the local city center. They're talking with the porters, and they appear to be talking as Lady Elizabeth, as you and Mr. Fraser begin to arrive on scene. Also you, Miss Bellinger. You can see that Paul is talking to them at the same time he's trying to do his work.
Yeah, Maggie would certainly rush over to wherever Richard is with Paul.
And I would go up as quickly as I can with my cane and offer to help Paul, because I do have some first aid training with my health issues and everything. So since he has to also talk to the police at the same time, offer to help him out. Let me help Paul.
Oh, certainly if you'd like, lady. Mr. Fraser was nice enough to get him stabilized for the moment. We need to move him somewhere where I can actually operate on him. And I'm trying to tell the authorities, he turns back around, that I need him somewhere stable and that they don't have time to sit and poke and investigate him. The man's life is in danger. And you can see Paul's actually almost red-faced about not being listened to.
And they're speaking in French, right?
Well, they're not speaking in French, no. They are speaking in, I believe it's Serbian. And Paul is trying to speak to them in English and Italian. He's saying a few other things. The porters from the Orient Express are helping as best they can, but it seems like what the police want to do is lock this area down and not let the train leave, not let anyone leave. So there's a bit of a kerfuffle.
So if there's a porter to help with translating, I'll try speaking French. If that doesn't work, I'll ask a porter to help, and I'll just pull myself up to my imperious sort of full 5'3" and tell them this man is in danger. We need to save him. We cannot do so on this platform. Whatever you need to do can be done after we make sure he doesn't bleed out in front of the train.
Okay, you can go ahead and give me a persuade roll.
Persuade is 60. And that is a 43.
Okay. Yeah, they seem to zero in on you after you pick your voice up and begin sort of wielding it like a social hammer. A conductor from the Orient Express comes out and begins talking with the officers, and they seem to be speaking the same language. So he very carefully explains some things to them, and in French you hear Paul say to the conductor, "This man is a passenger on the train. He must be allowed leave, so that way we can continue on with our travels. It is a matter of life and death." And then he points to Paul. He points to the professor and says, "His life. There is not a hospital here well enough that I can operate in immediately." And so the conductor sort of goes back again to these police officers, and they have another back and forth. But it doesn't look like they're going to let the train leave. The conductor turns to you, Lady Elizabeth, and says they want to keep the train here for the investigation, to take statements.
Was anyone around to see this?
There was one of our porters here at the end of the line did see something. We're going to take his statement.
The only person other than your porter who saw this is currently unable to speak. And if we are kept here, he will not be able to speak. So...
Milady, I understand the situation. You must understand that my title is conductor and your title as lady do not overcome the police.
Oh, I understand perfectly. It's just ridiculous.
You have no argument from me. He straightens his jacket again and then turns back to the police and again begins sort of making his case.
And while they're doing that, I'm going to tap Simon on the knee with my cane. Mr. Griffith, help Paul take the professor onto the train, please.
Of course, your ladyship. Paul, do we have the necessary means for a stretcher?
I think I have a strong enough back if you can help support the upper portion of his body.
Just take him now. Take him now, Mr. Griffith.
Miss Bellinger, Paul looks at you, Maggie.
Yes, Paul?
Would you be so happy as to help me create a scene?
Oh, of course, Paul. Yes, I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you. With those two gentlemen over there, he sort of nods at the police officers here.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to try to deal with the professor.
I feel like Maggie's scene is, because she's already distressed, is to become more outlandishly distressed. There's wailing, there will be a fainting spell, people will be rushing over to help her. She just can't bear, and her legs are crumpling under her as she's fainting.
Oh, good Lord, think of the blood. Look at the blood. Oh, Richard. It'd be great. All right, so I think that's a persuade roll.
All right, we'll see how this goes. A 19 under 20.
Interesting. So while Lady Elizabeth sort of assists in playing with the communications and sort of giving the cops the death stare of "you better let my train go because I have places to go and people to see," Simon, you and Paul are going to lift the professor and sneak a dying body onto the train, which I think is fantastic.
Is there a way I can do it gently with my strength?
Oh, certainly. Really, all it is just you saying, "I'm going to do X," and you're perfectly physically capable of being, you don't have to be brutish with his body by any means.
Fair enough.
So give me a strength roll, and then I would say for you, Mr. Fraser, you see before what happens is about to happen, you see what they're planning.
Fraser's just dumbfounded by the conception of taking a man who's clearly on the point of death, trying to manhandle him onto a train when the police are milling about, and then thinking that the train is going to leave the station without him being found.
That was an 88, so Simon's going to push the roll.
How would you like to push it?
I'm going to kneel down. Paul, I need some help getting him into the proper position so he doesn't open any wounds.
Well, the wounds haven't closed yet, Simon. I'm still trying to...
They're staunched, aren't they?
And for the moment, yes.
I'm trying to do what I can.
All right, well, lift with your knees, not your back.
And that's a 21 under 80.
So you don't, crack his skull on the pavement or on the doors. There's no bludgeoning of the professor as you move him inside the car. I'm going to make a spot hidden roll to see if the authorities notice what's happening.
Can I make a spot hidden roll to see if I notice the authorities noticing what's happened?
Well, let me resolve whether or not the authorities see it.
Do all the histrionics and everything give them a penalty?
Certainly. There's a woman fainting on the platform. And so as chivalrous as these police officers would like to be in this moment, so she faints on the platform, and of course one of them immediately rushes over. Oh my God, what has happened? All right, Fraser, if you would like to make a spot hidden to see if they've noticed anything.
Okay. Yeah, that's a hard success, 42.
Well, no, it doesn't appear so. In fact, because of the two porters, the conductor, Lady Elizabeth, and Miss Bellinger, there's an effective sort of shield wall now between the police officers and the body.
How many police officers are there?
Just two at the moment.
And one of them is currently paying a bit more attention to Maggie.
Oh, quite a bit, yes.
I'm going to go up to the other one and say to him, Officer, I think I saw someone running out of the station that way, and just point over to the exit of the station.
All right, fair enough.
And I'm adding to that with, don't you think you should be going after who did this instead of standing around looking at everyone? Isn't your job to catch criminals? Well, the criminal seems to be getting away.
Make a persuade roll, if you will, for me, Mr. Fraser.
Oh, that's an abundant failure. 76 over 10.
All right. He looks at you a little strange, and looks at Lady Elizabeth, and he tries to start looking around the line of people suddenly that's been set up. What's going on here?
No, that way over there. I'm good to actually physically try and kind of shift his not manhandling him, but just sort of turning his shoulders in order to try and say, no, look over there, man, over that way. I don't even care if he looks that way or not, as long as I've got his attention and not the others.
You've accomplished that for certain. So you have accomplished the position that he needs to look that way, and you've also accomplished being a completely physical block from getting him to a sight line to what's going on.
What's going on here is you are not going after the criminal who shot that poor man. You're standing around in here, which I don't think seems to be a very good use of your time.
The police officer looks at you and he furrows his brow. I don't work for you, he says in plain English.
I never said you did, but it seems to me that the best interest of the public you're supposed to serve is stopping murderers.
How about I write you up for agitating the police? He pulls out a book.
Well, there's a first time for everything.
He starts scribbling in his book. Simon, you and Paul get the professor's body inside you get him inside Paul's compartment, where he pulls out the table and then lays the professor's body on it. When he lays the professor's body on it, you hear almost a physical breath come out of Professor Courtenay. Martin, the professor wakes up at the hit points he has been given at the beginning of the session, having successfully used his pulp investigator ability to stay alive. You are in a mass of pain, and you can feel many hands on your body. It's rather disorienting and somewhat concerning.
What happened? Did the valve explode? Oh, did somebody have a gun? What
yes,
was it?
You've been shot. Just stay still, okay?
Shot. I've been shot
twice.
Simon's going to grab the basin in the room for, washing up, and fills it with water. I'm assuming he has to run down to the bathroom to do that and come back.
Probably, yes. You know that there was a basin of water that was brought out, but you had to pick the body up, so it's sitting outside the train right now. As you get ready to go, he says, see about going to the saloon car and getting me a exceedingly strong alcohol.
Of course, Paul. You might want to lock the door behind me.
Absolutely. He locks the door as you leave. So the what I'd like from the investigators outside is I think I'd like a group luck roll between those three people.
Oh, God. Maggie.
I'm at 42, so I'm doing pretty good. As Maggie's started wailing, our child, our poor child, what will I tell them? They will grow up without a father.
So, Spike, is that you with the luck roll? Because I have 67, so it's definitely not me.
No, it's Maggie Bellinger.
I rolled a 98.
Oh, dear God, she fumbled the luck. We're not leaving this city tonight.
So the police officers, as all of you try to sort of scrape this under the rug or deflect things to try to get the train moving, the lead officer here who's been talking with the conductor tells the conductor, you hear him say, "This train's not leaving the station. That's an order. Everyone back inside." And he points at the conductor with a sort of a stubby, thick finger and says, "You are not to leave." And then the police officer sort of steps back, and it seems like he's going for assistance. He tells the other officer that was helping Miss Bellinger and through her conniption fit or whatever she was having, her waves of wailing and just gnashing of teeth, he tells him to stay here and that they will be back with more.
I'm going to jump onto the train, see if I can find where they've taken Richard to.
You jump onto the train and begin investigating where they might have brought Richard to, and you see Simon sort of slowly walking down one of the hallways with a basin of water towards where you think Paul stays at.
Simon, do you know where they are?
They're in Paul's room. I've got a basin of water. You can help out if you can run to the saloon car and grab a really strong bottle of alcohol, probably vodka or something along those lines. I have not gotten it yet, and I don't have my wallet on me.
Right. They're not letting the train leave the station. Can you let Paul know that? There's a very good chance they'll come looking.
Of course. Well, yep. We're on this.
And I will turn on my heel and go to the saloon car. And I've got a fairly good idea why he wants spirits.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen it and seen it used in the war, and even probably before that.
Antiseptic and anesthetic.
That's right.
Simon will knock on the door for Paul.
You get unlocked and let in.
Paul, they're stopping the train from leaving. They're going to be looking for the professor soon. We can keep this locked. I'm not sure if we can put a quarantine or something on here saying sick individual.
It won't matter. The authorities don't care about that. They want to question Professor Courtenay.
Well, where can we put him that they won't find him?
He reaches into, because Richard, you're probably still a little physically out of it after having been shot. He reaches into the professor's jacket pocket and removes the glasses. And he turns to you, Simon, and says, "In case the professor's searched, hang on to these."
Give me a few minutes and I will go ahead and sequester them.
Very well. Fraser, getting alcohol from the saloon car is pretty simple.
Yeah. I'll just go up and say, "Excuse me, could I buy some alcohol, please?"
Yes.
And they'll hand me some and I'll give them some money.
Yes, it's a pretty tidy transaction altogether. You come back to Paul's compartment and he is going to make a medicine roll.
I think what I want to do is I want to just sort of drop it off quickly, get a very, very quick assessment of the situation, and then head back to Maggie and Lady Elizabeth on the platform.
One thing is very positive. When you drop off the alcohol, you see that the professor is breathing and conscious.
Okay, good. That is good.
All right. Let's see what Paul can get done. All right, that's a successful medicine roll. So over the next hour, Professor, you will earn 3 more hit points from Paul's steady work. You lose 1 bullet because one of them went through and through, and you get patched up. And you are probably physically still exhausted from blood loss, but you are not unconscious. Over that hour, a couple of things happen. The train station is covered in police officers, probably within about 15 minutes of them having to go get them. There are 8. They do a cursory check of everyone on board, at least visually. They check passports. And it's around about that time, Mr. Fraser, that you and I need to make a roll. So what is Mr. Fraser's credit rating?
It's not particularly great because he's not a wealthy man, although he works for a wealthy family. He has a credit rating of 31.
So the way this will work is I'm going to roll against your credit rating. If I roll against it and successfully roll under it, one of them will have noticed your name and or your picture, which is inside your passport, which of course has been recently in papers in Italy. And I have rolled an 87. You get checked, not even as closely as you were at the Italian border. He looks at your passport, he looks at you, flips it closed after about 15 seconds, and says, carry on.
Thank you.
They come in, Professor, to Paul's room. All of you within that hour would be informed by Paul or Simon or someone that the professor is alive and that he is breathing and that Paul is currently working to get a bullet out of him. The police are going to question you, Professor, as to what you saw and heard. So what I would like to know is, what are you going to tell them about what happened on the platform? And your medical physician will be present in the room when you talk.
So Richard will, again, as he does, he's not going to lie, but he may phrase things in a slightly unconventional way. It may be obscure things. So he's not lying, not in his mind anyway. So Richard will say, I was talking to the mechanics, and I understand they were replacing a broken valve, something that had occurred, and oh dear, I'm exhausted. And the fireman had apparently no knowledge of why this thing blew, and I turned around and there was a man who shot me. I don't know why he shot me, and I went to get help, turned around, and I don't know whether it was a valve hit me or I got shot or... And then I went down. There's really nothing more to say.
They didn't say anything to you beforehand? They didn't say why? They just came, walked up and shot you?
They walked up to me and they shot me, yes. Yes, they did shoot me. That is for sure. I am lucky to be alive, I'm told.
Paul nods. It's true. He's very lucky to be alive. I didn't see him get shot. I was one of the first on the scene, and there was no one around. He sort of puts his hand out wide. Must have just run off. Perhaps it was an attempted robbery.
Well, I've never seen this person before. Of that I can be sure.
Very well. They write the statement down. You can tell they seem a little concerned. Maybe they don't believe you're telling the whole story. So if you're going to attempt to omit facts which you know, I'm going to want to persuade roll, Professor.
The lucky green dice roll of 45 and 61. 58, sorry, that's not quite right, but yeah, it's a regular success in any case.
They seem to, after a moment, just make sure they have all the facts. They check your passport, of course, and Paul's. They ensure that you're not carrying anything illicit. They do a cursory examination of what they believe is your room. Of course, it's not. It's Paul's. When they search through Paul's stuff, however...
Oh no, he's going to get done for drug smuggling.
They investigate his bag very closely. And they sort of begin to take some things out of his bag. And you see tiny vials, 4 or 5 of them, that have a very strange white powder in them. And so Paul, looks around and looks out the window of the train and looks around a little bit, and they sort of place these things in front of him and ask, to explain yourself. What are these? He says, well, it's a medicinal, of course. I'm a doctor, and they are required for some of my patients, some of whom are on board right now. So, there's all sorts of different medicines and tonics, you understand. My patient here has recently discovered a need for one of my tonics, and some of these ingredients require, careful but constrained use under a doctor's careful eye. He seems to try to get a little bit magnanimous. Now the question is, do the cops believe Paul? The police officers counter and say, do you have some identification that shows you're a doctor? And so Paul's head sort of swims a little bit left and right, and he says, well, I don't have my doctorate certificate, if that's what you're asking. It's, of course, on the wall. Right, Professor?
Yes, quite. I have identification if you want some.
The authorities sort of get close to Paul, and they say something to him. It's very difficult for you to make it out. Make it out, Richard.
Can he listen hard?
You can listen hard, if you'd like to know.
Richard's not very perceptive with those sorts of things, but let's see what we can do. No, that's just a regular success.
They collect some of the vials that are on the table here, which is sort of your hospital table at the moment. And they shove them back in the bag, and then they shove the bag into Paul's chest, and he's pushed back against the wall. And they say something that seems a little nasty to him, and then walk out.
But what was that all about? What did they say?
They don't appreciate the finer arts of, Parisian magazines.
Oh, right.
You know, it's different here than it is in Paris. People see things differently. They act differently. They just haven't come around yet.
Right.
But rest up. He pats you on the shoulder. So, about an hour past when it was supposed to leave station, the Orient Express turns back to life and begins moving down the track. After the nastiness that happened outside, after the hour additionally that the saloon car decided to stay open, because of course it couldn't just shut while people were waiting for the train to go anywhere. Just past 2 a.m., you leave Ljubljana and you head to the next station, which is Zagreb.
So I think we are probably intending on staying on the train until Belgrade, because we know we have some investigation to do in Belgrade. I don't know whether there is anything that we want to do in Zagreb. I don't know if there's any kind of clues or anything that would lead us to Zagreb. I don't believe so.
That's not really for me to say, but I'm sure your other companions know.
I don't recall anything in... where was it? Zagreb? I think... No.
I don't see any need to stop.
The train does stop in Zagreb, and it stops in the stop thereafter, Vinkovici, I think it is. You will end up arriving in Belgrade probably 9:30 after all of the speedy travel that the conductor is able to do. Which, if there are no wants and stops by the players, that's where we will be arriving to very shortly.
I'll make my usual provisions for trying to arrange somewhere for us to stay when we arrive.
Well, Simon's going to help Paul clean up after the professor, and he will return the glasses to the professor. And then he would like to lay down and relax and heal with his Greek book.
Yeah, easily done. Most of your morning hours can be spent in the quiet and cozy compartments here in the Orient Express. So if you manage to get sleep on this journey, which I think most of you will, you can actually gain a point of sanity and 2 hit points, which of course furthers Martin's healing, or the professor's healing for that matter. So the tracks here run parallel as you approach Belgrade. They widen a little bit. You see something you have not seen in a little while, and that would be a beautifully wide river. What you also see is that it runs directly into the Danube, which meets here. And along the way, there are these giant herds of cattle and flocks of sheep here that range on the steppes. You see an amazingly beautiful pasture landscape as you arrive. Belgrade looks, for all intents and purposes, very peaceful. It's a nice morning. It's a beautiful sort of landscape to have a cup of tea and relax and have breakfast, which most of you will likely do. And after hours and days spent in Italy and the fog and the ickiness of those tunnels, this is a beautiful way to wake up this morning. The conductors come around and let you all know that the train will be arriving shortly, to the station, and so that anybody wishing to get off at Belgrade may do so.
I'll pack my stuff and check the timetable again and make the usual preparations for disembarking.
Richard will pull out his wallet, and in it there's a card that a stranger on a train gave him. If you remember, Richard was inquiring about a lens, and this guy's in Belgrade, if I remember correctly.
Indeed he is.
Richard's definitely going to want to find him.
Yeah, you have a hope in your heart that you can still fix it. So it's a little cold this morning as the train arrives, but not terribly so. There's no wind like the Bora, so that changes sort of the makeup. Those of us that have lived and around cold temperatures, the force of the wind makes a huge difference. There's a fog here that sits next to the river, sort of snakes down near the banks, up and over rocks and through some of the brush. It adds a beautiful accent to the morning. For you, Mr. Fraser, they give you a couple of different hotels. There are the Europa, the Moskva, and there are a couple of hotels. One of them he suggests is the Hotel Petrograd. He says that he's stayed there a few times. It's one of the more comfortable hotels.
Does it have provision for suites with a private drawing room?
Perhaps one or two, yes. What it will also have is a fantastic selection of wines.
Well, I mean, that's splendid. The Hotel Petrograd, did you say?
Indeed. You can take the electric tram that runs through town to get there.
Ah, electric tram. It's been a wee while since I've been on one of those. Yes.
Somewhere on the train, Lady E's wrinkling her nose at the thought of public transportation without even knowing it.
It's, just so you're aware, sir, it's 25 dinars to a sterling, just for your...
25 to 1, right. Splendid, thank you very much. That'd be extremely useful.
Do you require any dinars now?
That's a very good idea. I take it the hotel will take sterling.
Oh, it will, but you may want to have dinars in case you do some local shopping.
Well, yes. Well, let's get a little loose change, shall we, so that we have some spending money. Could you point me in the direction of somewhere where I might get a reasonably detailed map of the city and surroundings?
Most of the higher-end hotels should be able to provide you a map of the surroundings.
Excellent, thank you very much. And perhaps a tourist guide as well.
Oh! He goes into a bookcase here and near the entry-exit doors of this carriage and produces a traveler's companion for you.
Oh, yes, we have this. I wasn't sure if there's anything here which might be a little more detailed.
Oh, well, perhaps a local might have one.
Yes, well, this will suffice for now. Thank you.
Excellent. And your traveling companion, how is he?
I have not spoken to him yet this morning, but I understand he is on the mend.
Oh, good. It was a terrifying scene.
Aye, it was that. Can I make a psychology roll on this fella?
Yeah, sure.
Because he seems to be a little more chatty than most of the staff that we've spoken to. Oh, that's a 08.
Yeah, the impression that you get from him is that he's a genuinely warm person and that he cares about people.
Okay, so I will get some currency, just maybe sort of £20 worth of currency or thereabouts. It should be, I would imagine, plenty for petty cash.
Easily exchange it out with you. He lets you know that there's porters here at the station that can take bags. I would suggest you haggle. He sort of looks out there. Cabs here will meet all the trains, although if you do come back this way and you have to come back after dark, they'll charge you double.
Yes, I would expect no less. Thank you. Yes, I think we'll hail a cab rather than take the public transport.
Certainly. So the investigators, I suppose, begin to collect themselves and get ready to leave the Orient Express again. Maggie, it is tough for you to collect the pieces back into the the steamer trunk because you had so much enjoyed being around them, surrounded by them really on the bed. You didn't get cold at all. You didn't really even need your blankets because the knife keeps you warm.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing about kind of how Maggie would feel having to put these things. So it's going to be harder for her to part with them each day as we set out.
Perish the thought you would part with any of them.
Or my own limbs, for that matter.
There are a couple of sites you do see on the platform. There's a group of what appear to be Eastern Orthodox priests that get out. So very long black robes, some very specific attire. Lady Elizabeth, you would likely recognize them as Eastern Orthodoxic, Russian Orthodoxy priests. There's a gaggle of them, and I say that in the most affectionate way possible. There's 6 or 7 of them, and there's various robes and crosses, and they have all these big black briefcases.
I just sigh and shake my head. Such deluded people around these parts.
Yeah, they're all speaking Russian. Most of it is incomprehensible to you at this point, but they do seem to be making a fuss over some of the way some people are acting, or maybe way some people are dressing here on the platform.
Oh, they're one to talk.
All right, investigators, you are headed off to Hotel Petrograd.
Yep, I'll arrange for taxicabs. Probably need 2 of them for the 6 of us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not forgetting Paul.
That's good.
During this time, Maggie would probably be looking through her traveler's companion at the places of interest to see if there's anything that catches her eye.
All right. Yeah, so just giving it a scan, some of the places of interest. There's a promenade. There's a park here. Kale Magadan Park. Yeah, it looks like a military band plays here on Sunday. Lovely view of it. There's a big long staircase here that extends from here to the river. Looks like it's an absolute stunner of a place. And then there's some fortress.
Maybe we could do some shopping at the bazaar.
Maybe the professor can pick up a few extra sets of trousers.
Yes, I don't think that would be at all a bad idea, I have to say. I didn't need a new shirt as well.
And perhaps some body armor.
Yes, quite.
There is the marketplace as well as the bazaar. Although it says here that they sell fine weapons and rugs and carpets, they say nothing about trousers.
All right. Well, does it mention the bazaar on the business card he has?
It does not.
Okay.
Yeah, so luckily for all of you, it's not terribly far from the station to the hotel. It's actually on the other side of the station when you arrive. And you are fairly close to a couple of the other hotels. And it appears, anyway, that most of the prominent points for Belgrade are in front of you to the north.
So I would like to request a suite for us, if possible, with our own private sort of social area, private drawing room.
Certainly. They probably tell you it's going to be 25, so yeah, it's quite a few dinars, but if you pay in pounds sterling, it's really not that expensive.
If they ask us how many nights we're thinking about staying,
they do.
I'll say that we're expecting to stay for 3 nights.
So the principal language here is Serbo-Croatian, looks like. Anybody here have 10% or more in Russian by chance? No? Okay. Russian is a fall-over skill here, too. So if you have or speak Russian, you have a reasonable chance to pick up some of it.
I'll also ask for a detailed map of the city and surrounding area, or if they don't have one, to point me in the direction of a vendor where I can purchase one.
They do. You get a reasonably colorful map, like the one you see on the Roll20 screen, which gives you reference points and locations. Looks like there's about 150,000 people who live here. That should give you the relative size feeling of the city. And yeah, it appears anyway that most of the points of interest are going to be north, Maggie, towards the bazaar, and the fortress you can easily see from when you get off the train. It looks really interesting. So I would say this about the hotel. Well appointed, excellent service. When you arrive at Petrograd, Your things are taken by bellhops who prepare them immediately to be transported upstairs. The hotel is clean. It actually smells nice, which is something you're not used to. Nothing in Italy smelled nice. It was all, well, just not well taken care of by comparison. The staff here is prompt, and you're offered refreshments when you arrive and get checked in. And they have a beautiful sort of restaurant cafe that sits inside the base of the hotel.
I'm going to have Fraser inquire at the front desk if there's any mail for me, just in case. You know, it's on the Orient Express line. Could be something.
Well, I'll go to the front desk then and see if there is any telegrams or post for Her Ladyship.
Yes, actually there is something for Her Ladyship there.
Excellent. Well, I'll collect that then and bring it to her.
As he hands it over, what does it look like the post is?
It's a very carefully and neatly folded, it feels anyway like a neatly folded note inside of a beige envelope. There's an evident, some sort of wax covering that keeps it from being opened. There's no seal per se. It almost looks like it was, maybe there's some sort of fingerprint on it. There's a smell to it too.
Fraser will see Lady E's eyes just sort of light up, and she can't get rid of him fast enough. She wants to read her post.
Fraser is nothing if not discreet.
Okay, so are you going to wait till you get upstairs and get into your own private space to open this letter?
Yes. Have to be careful.
Of course. Undoubtedly have to be careful. Maggie, Richard, are you heading upstairs to get your locations all set up?
That sounds sensible. Yeah.
Yep. Maggie gets upstairs and then makes sure that all of the body parts all the pieces were safe during transport. I have to check on them.
It seems so, yes. Nothing has been molested. Everything's exactly where it needs to be.
No, perfect.
You definitely feel that pressure again on your chest. And then you feel it sort of in your back. You can feel the parts of the simulacrum beginning to massage you. That energy that comes out of them is something, even though it's pain, it's just so real.
I'm telling you, I can relate to this. It's like the nice pain of like touching a bruise. Like when you can't help but press on it.
So for your part, Lady Elizabeth, your door closes. Very simple, elegant push. And you get a chance to have the world push back outside the walls. And you can smell this faint sort of, I don't know, there's a scent here on this letter. You're not certain. You definitely have smelled it before, but there's oranges in it. There's perhaps a bit of clove. It's a strange scent. There's an earthy tone to it for certain.
And I will open it as soon as I've closed and locked the door.
You break that wax seal open and draw out the letter, sort of taking a look and bringing it up at the script. Very, very direct handwriting. And that is probably where your stomach turns. And it says, "Dearest sister, I see you have returned to the homeland our mother is from. Please ensure that you are prepared to meet Mother. Our time draws short." And at the end, there is a very scripted Alexander that's written at the bottom of it.
Drop it like it's on fire.
I think that's a reasonable point to end this episode. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of Horror on the Orient Express, where we've arrived in Belgrade. We've placed Italy in the rearview mirror, and we look forward to seeing what trouble our investigators can get up to next. Thank you, and good night.